welcome to the first new Table Talk podcast. My name is Eddie Buchanan, your host. These are candid conversations with public safety leaders and innovators. We're focused on how departments lead, operate, and adapt in a certainly rapidly changing environment. Today's guest is Mike Morash. Mike is the Regional Vice President of Community Hazard Mitigation for Verisk, also known as ISO. You might have heard of that. He's got 23 years with the company, been there a long time. Since the 1960s, ISO's been around. He oversees the public classification program, so the ISO rating scale you're probably familiar with, the building code adoption program, community risk reduction, which is basically the FEMA flood programs. And he's also got a law enforcement background for over 32 years of service. So we're really happy to have Mike Morash with the show. So pull up a seat at the table and let's get to it. Mike Morash, thanks for coming on the show and pulling up a seat at the table, man.
I appreciate it, Chief.
It's an honor for you to for us to have you here. I really do appreciate you making the trip.
No, and I thank you. And I, appreciate first you inviting us to have this conversation.
Yeah.
Information on the ISO Verisk schedule is an important piece that fire departments are very interested in. So, love to talk about this topic and have this discussion. Looking forward to it.
Yeah. So, it's being an old retired guy, right? I probably in my career I had 3 different times when we got involved in an ISO visit, right? So it's like from a firefighter perspective, a lot of times it's not something you think about every day, but then when it comes up, it's a big thing. So just for everybody, explain to us what this is. What is ISO? What is Verisk? Tell us what that program is and why firefighters should be aware of.
So Verisk, first off, is a data analytic company. So for that point, we do a lot of data collection in a lot of different areas within for metrics for healthcare and a lot of various pieces. But for this purpose here, for the community hazard mitigation part of it, which we'll discuss the fire suppression rating schedule, what the fire departments need to be aware is that when we go to a community, first off, this is a community schedule. This is community participation because we're looking at several components in this schedule. We're looking at going in, visiting the fire department to get their information. We're going into the communication center to get their information for certain points that we look at, and we go to the utilities and water departments so we want to get all 3 sections to make sure that we're coming out with a fair evaluation. The misunderstanding at the end of the day, though, is that everybody assumes that this is just a fire department. And it's really not. This is a community evaluation. Because at the end of the day, what it is, it's a grading that the insurance companies purchase. They purchase a grading from Verisk, and that classification piece is how they determine what type of discount you get in insurance policies, whether it's your homeowner's policy or your business policy.
So that was going to be my next question. Well, where does the data go, right? We understand the work we do with getting all our records together and all the different things you collect when you visit. But this ultimately impacts our community, like the members of our community. They see value in that. Is that how that works?
Yeah, at the end of the day, it's a community ratings. It's a community schedule. It's community classification. So you receive one classification, and that classification then gets published in insurance companies. So the insurance companies then purchase that classification to price out policies for premiums on those properties within that fire jurisdiction.
And it runs from 1 to 10? Is that how it works?
Yeah, so the classifications are class 1 through 10. Outside of that, then we have what we call our split classifications, which are your 8Bs or X's and Y's and class 9s.
Yeah, the fire department I was with, we were a suburban community, right? So we had some suburban areas and some rural areas, and we had a split, so it was a 1 over whatever. And it wasn't a 1. but as you see those stickers on the doors, right? That's where you see the ISO class 1 on the side of the rigs.
Yep.
So what kind of data do you guys collect? Like you mentioned going to the communication center. Just give us the broad overview of what sort of data is important for you when you come to visit and get those ratings. And then let's just start there. Tell me what the big things are. What are the big chunks?
All right. So first off, what we're looking for is to determine what type of grading we're going to do in a community. So are we going to do a hydranted only grading? Are we going to do a split class grading, which means that there may be properties outside of 1,000 feet of a hydrant, but still within 5 miles of a recognized fire station? So we need to determine what are we going to do. Are we going to do some sort of alternative water? Are we going to include long hose lays, tanker shuttles, and such in the grading? So that's the first piece we need to determine so that we know what type of data sets we're going to look at as we move through this process. So the schedule itself, the fire suppression rating schedule, is broken up into several chapters, into several sections. It's broken up into what we call Section 400, which covers the communications section. 300, which covers communications. 400, which covers the fire and it's four for communications, 5 for fire, 600 for the water section. So while we're in each of these sections, what we're doing is we'll look for certain factors so that when we're working on mathematical calculations in these, we know how many points to determine for each of them. So as you go through the communications section, it's a value of 10 points. The overall scale of what we're looking for is 105.5 is the best of maximum points you can score. So 10 points goes to communications, 50 points goes to the fire department section of it, and 40 points goes to the water section of it. That equals 100. At the end of the day, there's an extra 5.5 bonus points that a department could obtain based upon what we call their community risk reduction. How well do they participate in community risk reduction in the programs set forth in their community? So we take those numbers, we do mathematical calculations on the data that we collect, and we come out with an overall PPC score, Public Protection Classification Score.
And how many points was community risk reduction?
5.5.
5.5 extra, like extra credit kind of deal?
Yep.
Awesome.
So it's extra bonus points.
Perfect. Well, I like that. I think that's it's one of my pet peeves is making sure fire departments are paying attention to community risk reduction. Like I think, people tend to think of that as a fire prevention, something that fire marshals do, right?
Yep.
And it has operational impact, I think, if I can take some of the maybe non-emergent calls off my plate.
Yep.
That certainly, and then the risk of going to the non-emergent call.
Yep.
Just going up down the road.
Sure. I mean, you're looking at the public safety part of it. How well do they do the public education in the community? You're looking at how well are they getting involved in their inspections in the community. So there's a lot of components in fire investigations. How well do they do fire investigations? Who are making those determinations on fire investigations? So to me, that's a big component because overall, how well you invest in that also limits the severity of fire loss in your community. So that's a big piece.
Yeah. So one of the things that struck me right out of the gate, right, we're looking at communications and we're looking at the fire department operations, and then we're looking at water. What's your advice for fire departments that, like where I was from, we didn't have oversight. We worked well with our communications center. We had a very good 911 center, but we didn't have direct control over the 911 center. And it's kind of the same goes for water. We didn't have really direct influence over our water supply system. What advice do you have for fire chiefs, fire departments that, that's a big chunk of their score?
Yeah, it is.
What have you seen as like a best practice of how to talk? How do I integrate? How do I make my comm center or my water department more aware and more engaged with the ISO schedule?
So we do a lot of education out there, and part of the education is we invite fire chiefs as we advertise to bring the communications people into it. Let's bring them into the class. Let's bring them to the presentation, so that they start to understand those sections of which we're looking at and the importance of those pieces. We also invite them to bring utilities into it so that the water department is fully aware of what's expected out of them. So it's not just falling back on the fire department. We also tell them, hey, invite the mayor, invite the city council, whoever it may be, that may have a little bit more influence over all the three parties that are going to be involved in the evaluation. Because at the end of the day, you're trying to get that best evaluation for your community that you possibly can. With communications, so the three components, we look at three components, and we try to make people understand is that when you look at communications, you're trying to get the most out of those points that you can. Because in the overall score, there's a divergence factor that happens. The divergence factor says that you can't have a great fire department with kind of a lousy water department.
Right.
You can't have a great water department or kind of a lousy fire department. So there's a divergence factor that happens between water and fire. So you try to get the maximum points of the 10 that you can get in communications, so those full 10 points will then carry into that calculation and maybe, hopefully, get you a little extra points where you need to go.
What is when you look at communications, what do you think is the weak spot? Where are the places, there's two things. Where are the places that are challenging to get points? And then where are the easy, what are the easy ones? What are the things that we want to make sure we don't screw up? And then, things maybe we can improve with some better work and cooperation. What are the two sides?
So where we're seeing a challenging points in communication lately is coming into the call processing and the call receiving information. communication centers seem to be having a little bit of difficulty providing that information. We don't know whether it's they just don't want to do the work sometimes, or it's the systems themselves that may have purchased to gather that information, dig that information out. That's where we see a lot of, over the past few years, communication systems losing those points, especially when it comes to call processing. For some reason, the timeliness of those calls, more detailed information on those calls is a little more important, so it's taking longer for those calls to get out to the fire service. So as you start looking at those points are dropping down a little bit in those areas. Also, the lack of staffing, that reflects the overall points, right? If you don't have the proper staffing, you're not going to be able to pick up the phones quick, move that call around, and get that call dispatched out to the folks. So those are the areas really that we're seeing some weakness in when it comes to the communication side. A lot of the other points are pretty much, I call, they relate to the CAD system. Mm-hmm. Everybody's got pretty much updated CADs nowadays. Relates to the the type of whether you got basic 911 or enhanced 911, those type of things. Those are pretty much give me points that everybody has nowadays. It boils down into the alarm processing and the alarm receipt time that we see the more points being lost off the table every day as we go through this process.
Have you seen fire departments do anything interesting to try to help with that? Is there anything that we could do to, outside of lobbying for staffing, and making sure they have up-to-date technology? Anything else worked?
It's really communicating with, if it's the sheriff running the communication center, having that relationship, telling them the importance of what this evaluation is about, and that it's just not a fire department evaluation. Overall, it's a community evaluation.
That's an interesting point, right? So if I guess I'm thinking of it from a separate 911 center where they were standalone, but the sheriff definitely had, a law enforcement officer definitely had the influence,
Yeah.
right? So maybe lean on them. And in a lot of cases, that 911 center is tucked under the police department.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's a good way to go at it. I guess education. I have a buddy of mine. He always talks about donuts, right? Like the best way to get stuff done is to show up with donuts in hand and some coffee.
Yeah, well, being an ex-cop, that's very familiar with those terminologies. Yeah.
Yeah. No offense with the donuts thing, but
just treat me with a good jelly donut. We're good to go, right?
Yeah. We once we got a new finance director many years ago, and when we came over to meet her, we noticed she had a really bad office chair. So the magic of logistics, that was fixed the next morning, right? You want your finance director to have a nice office chair.
Yeah.
So those things are important. What are you seeing with the water department? Kind of the same sort of line of thinking is, how do we? Are there any gimme points in the water category, or any things that we should be thinking to try to improve?
Water's across the board with relationships, again, with your community. A lot of times, we hear from water departments say that they're not in the business for fire protection. They're in the business to sell water. Right. That's where it is. So they don't like to get involved in the flow testing. They don't want to see those flow testing, the water going on the ground. So it's really building that relationship with, and again, explaining to them the importance that this is, again, not a fire department evaluation. It's a community evaluation, and the need for everybody to be involved in this, in the overall grading process. Because at the end of the day, the customer to the community is those homeowners. That's who they're serving.
Yeah. You made me think of an interesting point, but I always seem like it's the fire department that's raising the ISO flag, right? We're the ones that seem to own it, but maybe that's not actually accurate.
No, it's not, because you don't own it. Unfortunately, you're the one who's participating in it most.
Yeah.
Because we're coming to you in the big get-go. But what we try to do is we try to educate our folks within Verus, our field staff, to get involved, get more involved in education with the fire chief. As you're going through this process, maybe reach out, tell the fire chief, hey, let's set up a phone call in the beginning. Let's all get together on the phone with the communication center. Let's explain the information we're looking for. Let's get on the phone with utilities. Let's explain what we're looking for them. So everybody's on the same page. Sometimes when they hear from an outside person of really the importance of it is, not just from the fire chief, it's delivered a little bit easier to them, and they understand it, and they get the purpose of why we're there for that. Again, for the customer.
How do fire departments that don't necessarily have municipal water, what are they? Can they be competitive? Is there? How do you evaluate a fire department that Like in my old department, we had some areas that were hydrated, and we had some areas that weren't, more that weren't. How does that evaluation differ?
There really is no difference in evaluation. Yeah. It's really, if you have a pressurized system, we evaluate you based on your pressurized system. If you're delivering the water by mobile means, either tanker shuttles and such, we're going to evaluate each piece of those sections of which we're going to go through. Where do you get the water from? How fast can you deliver the water? How fast can you set it up? And how fast can the continuation of that water process go without ever running up to cause an interruption in flow? So all those pieces are evaluated the same no matter how we look at them.
So fire flow is the
key.
Fire flow is key.
Yeah, fire flow is key. We're ensuring that you can maintain a minimum of that 250 GPM flow over a duration of period of time.
Well, there's something to do with drill night.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Get out there and get good at that.
Yeah. I mean, and we tell the people all the time, you got to practice this. You got to, because especially when it comes to alternative water, if we're going to come out there and evaluate alternative water, we're going to want to make sure that you can demonstrate to us. Right? Yeah. So either that to be we're physically watching it or you're videotaping it, but somehow we want to see that process. So you got to be able to, you got to become good at it. Mm-hmm. Right. You got to become good at it. It's got to be user friendly because it's a tool that you're going to be using, and you got to be able to demonstrate.
It's a system, right? It's not just a tanker showing up or a tender, depending on where you live or you're listening to this from. Yep. It's that water carrier showing up and then having it's almost like air traffic control, to make sure these trucks can do that. I recall the last one we did. We actually put on a demonstration, where we actually ran a tanker shuttle, and we call them tankers back in Virginia, and that seemed to work.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, and the benefit of the tender shuttle, depending on what part of the country you're in, is to help those residents that are, again, outside that 1,000-foot of that pressurized hydrant. You want to bring them into that single PPC classification, that class 1 through 8, whatever the community may have had. You're trying to get them out of that X, Y, or 9s of insurance rates. Mm-hmm. So that's a big benefit that works on that portion. And we try to explain that to fire chiefs. If that's availability, it's a tool in your toolbox, let's look at it. Let's go through this process. If you don't pass, you don't pass, but at least you gave us a demonstration that you're attempting to try it and how maybe you can improve on it the next time we come around.
How does it work when, like, in Virginia, where I'm from, everything was kind of county-based. Mm-hmm. So when we did an ISO visit, it was basically one fire department. What do you do, like, I know, like, Pennsylvania is another example of where there's lots of fire departments within a single community. How does that work? How do they do that?
So we look at each fire department per the way their boundaries are laid out.
So it's fire department specific.
Fire department specific, and how the boundaries are, and that's how you're going to get graded. We grade about 37,000 fire departments across the country, and we try to keep them on a 5-year schedule going through the system. Make sure they're updated within a 5-year period. So each individual fire department receives their own classification. Each individual fire protection area, I should say, receives their own PPC classification.
Okay. Let's look at the fire department operations. We kind of looked at communications, kind of looked at water. Yep. Inside the fire department operations, what are the kind of the same thing? What are the gimmies? Like, what are the points that are fairly easy to acquire? And then where are the weak spots? Where are the places that we should be kind of looking to improve on?
All right, so that's a good question, because you look at the gimme points that we've seen over time is everybody's pretty much doing pump testing, ensuring that the pumps are up to what they're supposed to be pumping at. That's a 3-point item. Majority of the time we see either very close to 3 or just outside the 3 points that fire departments are receiving in that section there. Another area that we see points really coming the fire departments is either very close to what we call the full 600 points in the apparatus. Either you're getting the full 600 points per apparatus, and that's for your equipment that's carried on those apparatus, all those appliances that we ask you to carry, or you just may be missing an item that may throw it into like 589 points or such. So you're either getting 5.89 roughly or the full 6 points when it comes to that section there. So that's pretty much your give-me sections when it comes to those areas. Because everybody has engines, everybody's pump testing, everybody's got the hose testing, it's supposed to be hose testing, and have hose on their truck. So fairly, those pretty much fall in line across the country outside of where, shy points here or there, but they fall in line pretty well evenly. where we start seeing the points, the heavier where people need to start concentrating on is probably more in the training section, personnel, and deployment. Deployment's a big piece. Sometimes even ladders. When you need a ladder, when you don't need a ladder, or a service company, and those locations that determine where those ladders are. So we try to help the departments understand those areas, get a full understanding, make sure they're clear on what we're looking for when we walk in the door, so that they can lay it out and obtain all that documentation we need going in the door.
When you say ladders, with ladder trucks, truck companies, whatever you call it, wherever you are those? Is that based on capability, or is there like a certain threshold where I need to have a formal truck company, like big stick on wheels?
Yeah, and that's a great question, because everybody usually gets confused on that one. So when we walk in the door and to grade a community, a fire protection area, what we're looking for is whether or not do you need a ladder or do you need a service company. And what I try to tell people is just remember the number 5. The number 5 is the key to the whole equation. So what we say, in order to make that determination whether you need a ladder, you either have 5 buildings in your fire protection jurisdiction that are 3 stories or taller, 5 buildings that may have a need of fire flow greater than 3,500 GPM,
Okay.
or 5 buildings that have that are 32 feet in height from the floor to the eave, or you have a combination of all 3 of them that equal 5. If you don't have that number, we're going to be looking for a service company, service truck.
Like a squad or something like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the number is really 5. You got to look at community. So we look at the overall community first. We don't look at your operations. We look at the overall community first, and then from there we determine, okay, then how do you operate? Do you even have a ladder, and does it go to all fires, all structure fires in your community, or are you only sending to certain structure fires in your community? So we start looking at those pieces as well.
And, even the things that we would call the easier points to get, the apparatus, the pump testing. Pump testing, that's something that we could probably do better at.
Yeah, yeah.
Fire service, and actually making sure, because that usually, I guess most fire departments outsource that.
Yeah, large majority outsource it. Some departments have people inside to get it done.
Yeah, I guess if you got an EVT or something, you can do it.
Yeah.
Somebody in the fleet services area. I think in just making sure the equipment is on the truck is also more challenging than it might sound.
Yeah.
For fire departments that, things get lost. I know that's something that I know First Due focuses on, we're really good at, is given the ability to do a truck check, as you walk down the side of the rig, just on a mobile device to make sure it's there. But I want to make a point. We were talking before the show about, catastrophic events and things that happen. One of the things that I learned the unfortunate way was when we had a fairly traumatic event on the interstate where one of our rigs was hit. It resulted in fatalities, major injuries, things like that. But from the insurance perspective and the recovery phase of that incident, we had to account for everything on the rig.
Yeah. Yeah.
What was on what rig and what compartment, what state is that equipment in today. Basically wiped the rig out, totaled the rig and all the equipment on it and some of the personnel. So I think it's always important anytime I get a chance to talk to firefighters about a truck check, you check it like check it like it's the last time, because you never know, right?
Yep. We've seen a lot. I'll tell you, it's funny because over the years that I've been doing this job, we've seen the usual truck check. You see someone just pencil whip a truck check, and that's the end of it. And then we'll walk outside and say, okay, we're going to go through your apparatus. Let's make sure all the equipment that you said is on this truck. And all of a sudden, they're in another world. They can't remember where the apparatus is located. And you have that conversation. According to this morning, you were out here, you did a truck check. You should know where all this equipment is located. You should be able to put it right out, put your hands right on top, fingers right, touch it right now. You should know.
I would say this, I guess if your ISO inspection causes stress, that make sure that, you're doing your rig inventory, maybe you want to do better, right? Like maybe you want to step that capability up.
Yeah.
But so that's an important piece, just making sure the rig is squared away the way the rig should be every day, but, reality. Over in the training side, what sort of training, how does that work? The training records, like what's important? What things do we miss that we should be paying more attention to?
Overall, what we find in training, and again, training is a 9-point item overall.
Okay.
And what we find in training is lack of documentation. Training occurs every day. Everybody's doing some sort of training, but no one really captures the documentation at the end of the day. They're not documented where it needs to be. They're just leaving, or they didn't realize they trained. So it's really documentation, and you find a lot of points that are left, what I call on the table at the end of the day, and it hurts departments. And really, what it boils down to is if it's the captain of the shift that day, the lieutenant, and they're in charge, it's just making sure they're capturing, getting in the system, make sure they're documenting, having that conversation with your crews. Hey, I noticed you guys were out there training. Did you document as such? Get it documented. Because that's what we're looking for. Because at the end of the day, we're going to go through training. We're going to look at several components of training. We're going to look at are you doing facilities training? And within facilities, we want to ensure that are you utilizing 3 of the components of which facilities we look at. Those components consist of a live fire structure, including smoke room. We want to ensure that they are utilizing a drill tower, and are they utilizing a drill field. So what we say is, okay, you got to utilize all 3 of these components. Each member that we look at in the schedule for personnel under personnel numbers has to utilize all 3 of these components. And for maximum credit, each member has to do a total of 18 hours with the utilization of all 3 of these components.
Okay.
There's no set hours to say how many hours you got to do at the burn, in the burn building smoke. There's no set hours of how many at the drill field or at the drill tower. It's just you have to do a combined total hours of 18 hours for max credit. So how do you document it? And all of training, what we're looking for is ensuring that it's all structure fire related, because that's what our fire suppression rating schedule is. It's structure fire related. So we want to ensure that you're capturing all that information. We see a lot of times, EMS put in there and some other items. We'll have those discussions, but at the end of the day, it's got to be structure fire related. So again, we look at those facilities. Are you utilizing those components? Did you document it as such? Where were those facilities located? A lot of myths out there when we go have these conversations with fire chiefs. Some of the myths are they believe that all 3 of the components have to be at one location. That's not true. It's not true.
That's what I was just wondering. If you don't have a training academy, how do you define a smoke room? What is that exactly?
So it's really it's a burn building, including smoke, that is meeting the general criteria of NFPA.
Okay.
So is it an authorized building that you're going in and utilizing for that purpose?
So burn building, you need a tower.
So burn building is one of them. You need a drill tower, at least 3 stories in height, 3 stories tall. And then you need a drill field for full credit that you're utilizing that's 2 acres in size. For partial credit, it could be 1 acre.
2 acres. And so if I'm in a community or a fire department that doesn't have that, I was spoiled. We had a training academy, right? So what do I do if I don't? I guess having access to something regional or how, I guess that's how they do that?
Yeah, they just travel around and they try to find who maybe their neighboring department has a drill tower. They utilize the neighboring department's drill tower. Maybe the state has a mobile type prop that they bring around, they let fire departments use for the burn building plume smoke. Right?
Yeah.
As long as they're utilizing these components and the documents and such, you're getting the credit. Maybe there's an academy or a drill field they're utilizing. It's got to be a public safety type drill field. That's the purpose of it. And they're documented and such. Could be in a neighboring community. They could be traveling. The beauty of facilities is really there's no travel distance requirement built into that component piece there. So no matter where anybody goes to do facilities, as long as it's structure fire related, they're bringing those hours back for training for the full credit.
Okay. Do I have to have a formal agreement with, let's say, the community next door? We go over and use their place. Do I need to have anything written? Or
Yeah. Well, we like to make sure that, one, you are utilizing it.
Right.
You documented where that location was. It's nice to have some sort of agreement or something so we know that it's just not a once and done because, hey, ISO's coming, they shall turn around, let's get in that facility and get it done over there, right?
Yeah.
So we want to make sure you're consistently using those pieces and there's agreement or something in place.
So just one pager somewhere that says, hey, we have an agreement to go over there when we need to.
Yep.
That'll work.
Yep.
All right. Well, are there where do we overlook stuff in the training curriculum? I guess driver's training. Are there any things that we should be specifically looking at to capture that we probably don't?
let's go. So we had the facilities. We talked about facility. Make sure we capture all those hours, right? Then we go to company training.
Okay.
Company trainings is the 192 hours that you got to do over the course of a year, each person. Are they capturing those hours? And really, what that boils down is really 2 hours per shift.
Okay.
So during that 2 hour shift, 2 hours that they're there on the shift, are they doing some sort of company related training? Company training, again, is structure fire related. But that's so broad because it could be computer, it could be virtual, it could be on at the station, it could be at an open parking lot at a shopping center where no one's there. You're doing ladders and stuff. It's ensuring that component is getting done for company training, and you're documenting those hours correctly. And are they assigning it? Do you have is there a log or something that says here's what you're assigned for this day? Ensure that it's getting done. Like I said, it could have been a computer-related course that's going over, operations of a fire scene or smoke-related or whatever it may be. But it's been put out there in advance so the members know I got to get this completed.
Okay. I wonder, I'm thinking of the technology as we evolve. I know we've been first we've been very involved with AI and leveraging the technology to better capture these things. Are you seeing that? Is that starting to catch on yet?
It's capturing big time. I mean, the use of one platforms is big. It helps not only the department be able to track the hours and what type of class is doing, but it also helps us when we come in the community because everything's broken down pretty easily. The days of seeing things written on napkins and you got to go through the napkins and get all that and figure out, hey, is this true or do we just make this up now? Those days we're starting to see past us now, and everybody's coming to more modern technology. I was just at the Florida Fire Conferences last week, and the use of AI and the use of all these virtual tools that are out there, it's amazing. You used to see the kids sitting at home playing on the PlayStations, and how that technology has now evolved just for the fire service alone to utilize. There was a vendor I was talking to, and how they're able to set up all these different screens in the burn building now, and they could flash up fire scenarios and little pop-up fires as you're working your way through the building. But you're working as a team because you're getting that feel of that real pressure in the nozzle and stuff. The technology itself is amazing what's out there and what's available for fire departments to utilize.
Well, some good solid reporting can almost make this an automated event, where all these things are already captured. All you got to do is push a button and there's here it is, takes no time at all, That's pretty impressive. I saw, talking about using technology, one of the things that always cracked me up was size up. The fire service seems to think when we say make a lap, it's not a race.
No.
Like they'll run around the building and they didn't see anything. They just ran around the building real fast.
Yeah.
That wasn't the point. So I noticed one of our sharp training officers recently started putting iPads on each side of the building. So when you ran around, you had to go and collect what the images, what was going on based on that.
Yeah.
So I was like, hey, there you go. Now just slow it down a little bit. Actually,
take a look
instead of just run fast.
Yeah.
So that's amazing. That's good
and
stuff.
it was also funny is the terminology as you go through different parts of the country. It's the terminology in different pieces and how they call one thing and it's called something else wherever another part of the country. We talked about tanker and tender shows. You say tanker in one part of the country, people look at you like, no, that's an aircraft.
Yeah.
Kind of give you that weird look when you're doing presentations out there when you don't use their specific terminology.
Right.
It took me a long time when I came down from the Northeast to say y'all. Yeah. Get that southern language in different parts of the country going correctly.
I'm a heavy y'all user. I use it all the time. Yeah. What on the equipment list? There's some things like I remember some stuff on the apparatus list that used to be kind of cool, but disappeared. And one of the things that I'm thinking of is like a distributor nozzle. Is that still on the schedule?
No, that distributor
gone?
That's been gone for a long time. Actually, we're finally working to replace the hydrant clamp, the hose clamp.
Okay, yeah.
The hose clamp. That's finally kind of starting to see its way work out the door in some areas because a lot of academies don't train to use the hose clamps no more.
Yeah.
So we've been replacing that now with the use of the tick because the tick is really a tool that really helps those the severity of fire loss, especially for that first new engine company when they come in the door. So they really could pinpoint where is that fire coming from, where is that heat coming from, right? We used to say it had to be on a ladder or a service company, which was really, when we looked at it, was really the second salvage or overhaul company coming in, and that's really not real. That, in my opinion, where that should have been placed. Should have always been placed on the first new engine coming in. So
Well, they're way more prevalent now than
Yeah.
they used to be.
Oh yeah, technology on that is
Yeah.
amazing.
I mean, it used to be that headboard, that thing you mounted on your helmet that weighed 40 pounds or whatever.
Yeah.
Now pretty much, most engine companies are carrying one, it seems like, at least, hopefully if you're in a urban and suburban area anyway.
Yeah. And the old box light, the orange box lights that
Yeah.
are mounted, we're starting to see a lot of those now move away from to jacket lights. People getting on the jackets and stuff. Just ensuring as the technology involves that it's meeting what the schedule's looking for. So we always tell people, hey, if you're looking to invest or someone's looking to tell you don't need this because it's old and outdated, reach out to ISO. Let's reach out to your field rep. Have that quick conversation with them because you want to make sure you're not going to lose those points.
What tech are you seeing on the horizon? What's on your radar that maybe it's not in the schedule yet, but might be something that you maybe 10 years from now is?
It's hard to say because technology involves so much. It really does. When it comes to the apparatus, every appliance, every tool that we see on the apparatus, what we're calling for now, we're still seeing it as a need. What we're starting to see maybe limit out a little bit is the use of generators. Because everybody's now moved to battery operated equipment, right? So you don't need those big kilowatt generators on these trucks. So you start utilizing either something small. Start to see trucks lined up with the battery packs on them and stuff. So generators are starting to move slowly away from the need on these fire trucks. Is what we see.
I'll tell you, it's kind of a combination of thermal imaging and technology. I've been impressed with drones.
Yeah.
And not really just to fly around and look. Like I've noticed a couple of social media posts where fire departments are starting to use their drone footage.
Yeah.
So it looks like an action movie, when
Yeah.
you see the thing, which is okay. But I mean, the real value in that, looking at a structure fire from above, the thermal imaging on that was really telling. I was like, man, that's very useful.
Yeah, and I guess as that evolves more, does that old thermal imaging move away, or does that more technology of that drone and the ability to use that drone? How do we look at credit in the future on that? That could be a possibility. I never really looked at that. I would always see that more as maybe looking at the drone as we go into more of a pre-plan and inspection type thing.
Yeah.
Or we capture that full size of that building correctly. But I never really thought of your angle on it. It was a good angle.
Yeah, it's just looking at it from a size up perspective, and I was just happened to see it kind of accidentally, saw some footage. I was like, man, that thing is really giving me some flow path indicator.
Yeah.
That's very useful. So things I wouldn't see from the ground level, looking at it straight on. So I was like, okay, now at first I was like, I don't know, it's nice to have.
Yeah.
But that puts it more in the kind of gotta have category,
Yeah. And when you look at the schedule, because you're going to remember the schedule is a countrywide schedule.
Yeah,
It's so you have your urban, suburban, and metro areas, right? How would that fit in those small flat plain areas?
Totally.
If we tried to say that's what you must have, and Chief looks at you and goes, I don't have nothing really. We can see over the building as it is now. You tell me I need a drone for that?
So I'd be curious to see what your impression is, because when we look at things like the Assistance to Firefighter Grant Program and things where, where we kind of go for things we can't get in our budget, kind of deal. One of the big, I guess it's an argument or a debate, was, we like to see more technology available in the grants programs.
Yep.
But the counter argument to that is we still have fire departments that don't have turnout gear. Mm-hmm. And is that still the case? Are we still in that place from your experience?
We see few that struggle on turnout gear.
Yeah.
We see few that struggle on even newer apparatus. Getting updated apparatus. But what we're starting to see is more and more when it comes to grant pieces is somehow a lot of these states are building in that you have to have a certain ISO classification in order to even qualify for a grant, which I find very interesting. Mm-hmm. So it's showing the importance of the ISO classification piece there. We see that across a lot of states lately, saying, hey, Chief, you got to provide us with what is that classification? Because we want to make sure, one, you're participating, I guess, and that you're actually acting as a fire department before we turn over this money to you.
Interesting. Yeah, I'd like to think we're making progress. And the AFG's been around for, I don't know, 20 years almost now, probably getting close, something like that.
Yeah.
So it's, I don't know. I guess every fire department probably needs better funding, particularly as technology starts to improve and increase. So
from your small little volunteer department to your large departments.
Yeah.
Everybody's budget constraints. You know?
And I would even, I would argue that the smaller rural fire department could use that drone just every bit as much as an urban one.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of priorities, I guess, which you got to get to first.
Yeah, correct. What are your needs really that
Yeah.
you're looking for? We still see sometimes we go out there, we'll still see empty air packs, empty air bottles on trucks.
Yeah.
It's amazing what you still see out there. The department's still struggling for.
Mm-hmm.
You see apparatus that are just run down, and you go, you run these things at just fire scenes. But that's what they have. That's what they got to utilize.
I mean, everything on the truck, usually requires some sort of maintenance and replacement
Yeah.
program. SCBA included. They're really expensive to purchase, and then you got to replace them at a certain period of time. So, just getting them once ain't enough. You have to be ready to maintain
Yeah.
it. So, let's change gears a little bit. I'll talk about data. I'm a data nerd,
Okay.
right? So the schedule for ISO. Tell us how you leverage data to develop the schedule. So I think the impression might be, or at least some of the misguided impressions might be, that ISO, they just kind of randomly said you need X, Y, and Z, and there you go. But I think there's probably a little more science behind that math, right?
Sure, because everything we look at that's in the schedule has a calculation that's built behind it. In order for us to obtain the information from that calculation, we need to see data. Data is the big component, big driver, right? From communications right through water flows. Everything is data driven and data provided. So we want to see that data. We want to see the data on, the minute the call comes in for 911. We're looking at that timestamp all the way through when the membership arrive on the fire scene. All that data is components of which we're collecting in order to produce an end result in the calculation. So data's big. Data's a big component, right into mapping. How do you map your community? Are you capturing everything you need to capture in that data set? Your hydrants and all that such. We want to see it all. We need it as components. Because what we want to do at the end of the day is we want to make sure that we are measuring the department correctly and that we're producing a quality product that we can give the insurance companies for their measurement as well in their tool.
So you're able to leverage to use some community data. There is a schedule, but it is data informed.
Yep.
I guess is the way to say it, and then tailored to the community that you're looking at.
In a sense, yeah, because you're looking at, it's the data is what is that community, how big is that community overall, and how do they operate, right? And that's the data they're going to collect, and that data that they're collecting for those components of the schedule we're looking for is what we're going to look at and evaluate at the end of the day.
Okay, so I think that's one of the, misconceptions that firefighters might have out there. Looking at it from the station perspective, it's not something you think about every day.
Nope.
It comes up every now and then, maybe 2 or 3 times in a career where you're like, oh, we gotta go do this now.
Yep.
And but I think the real point is, there's value in it. It's not just about the fire department; it's a community benefit, right? Like,
Yep.
what would you tell a firefighter that's just not interested? It's not something they think about on a daily basis. It's not a priority for them in their daily routines. What advice would you have for them that they should be thinking about, maybe be more aware of?
My opinion, what they should be thinking about and be more aware of is the fact that they're working for that community, and that community they should be proud of that community, and they should be proud of their ability to deliver a top-notch service to those residents, to help those residents get the best rating to reduce their insurance rates in those areas. That's what they should be taking pride of. Again, it's not the fire department. It is the community. And that's what those memberships got to be aware of. It's not them. They work for that community. And you should be working to do the best for that community and delivering a great service to them.
So it sounds like the takeaways, the action items I would have from our chat would be, we need to reposition ISO in the community thought process, that it's not just a fire department thing. It's, I want to talk to my city manager about this. I want to talk to my elected officials about this. I want the law enforcement leadership to understand it, my water department, my fleet, my communications center. It should be in the multi-hazard category that the other things might be in your community, like storm preparedness and some of the other, whatever emergencies you deal with, wildfire, whatever you have. Everybody's got something.
Yeah.
And it also seems that from repositioning from kind of almost a marketing perspective, it seems important that if you score well in the ISO schedule, you fixed a lot of other stuff too.
Sure, and I always tell people, the better your ISO PPC classification is, you're helping your economic development growth, right? Because what you're offering to people to come in, build in your community, you're offering a level of service that maybe your neighboring communities aren't delivering. So maybe your neighboring community, they're a class 4, you're shooting for that class 2 or that class 1. Maybe, that's the piece right there that you're selling in the economic development piece. That, hey, we have a level of service that we're delivering. We show it. Here's the rating. Here's how we've been graded. Neighboring communities, there are only 5. Where do you want to look? That's how we sell that.
Tell me, what is the attitude of an ISO Class 1 fire department? How do they behave? And it's not just that maybe there's some fire departments that just won't make a Class 1 because it's just not possible. Yeah. But what are the winning attitudes, right? Like, what are their key traits that you see across all your Class 1s that maybe some other folks could learn from? So
it's funny that we bring this up because the tally of Class 1s since this new schedule came out in 2012, we're up, the tally of what I just saw last night, we're probably a little over 500 Class 1s.
Okay.
That's big. The old schedule from the 80s, we were sitting at 70-something. It stayed roughly there the whole time. So the new schedule really has adapted to the capture of more accurate record keeping and the trueness of what the fire service does. That's really what the schedule is about, and it shows that, and it reflects that in the way we see progressiveness in the schedule. With the Class 1s, what we see is that those are those departments that are working with the neighboring communities. When it comes to automatic aid, the utilities, the communication, they got those relationships built, right? And it's the data and the documentation piece. They're capturing it so that when you're walking in a door, they knew their drive right out the door. They knew where they wanted to be, and they focused on capturing that data and ensuring that when we walked in the door, it was there and they could show it and laid out. That's really what it is.
Yeah.
Compared to small departments that maybe can't afford to utilize all the big fancy bells and whistles. And they're just happy being where they're at because they're functioning, they're serving that community for what they have.
The term that came to mind was discipline.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
They're disciplined.
Yeah.
I love to ask the question, is it true that firefighters don't like to collect data? Is that true? You think that's true?
I think it's true, yeah, to a little point. Those who are disciplined, like you said, to capture, it's built into them, and they know the importance of capturing data. The old timers. I hate to say the old timers are out there. It's always been penciled. It's built. It's the way they were born and the way they came up through the service. Document on the pencil, and it's always worked. Don't change it type attitude.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I don't know that anybody ever taught us to either. You know what I mean? That was when I came in the fire service, nobody. I think my report writing class, the report section of Firefighter 1, what is that, like an hour or something maybe?
Yeah.
If that?
Yeah.
That I don't think the instructor was that excited about.
No, and still to this day, it's funny because a lot of guys, when that shift's coming down or that call's over, they got to get those reports done. That's the last thing on their mind.
Yeah.
They want to go back to bed. They want to go home. So they're trying to really quickly work through that report to get what they need to do just to get out that door. So again, the department is focused on that and really has a well-built program that's making it simplified for those people to complete it. That's a big benefit. A big benefit.
Yeah. Well, I think like our law enforcement buddies, as you know, I bet. What was your training like because you have a long history in law enforcement? What was your training like on report writing?
It was. I came through the city, New York City.
Yeah.
So it was someone to run in a room real quick, do an incident, and you were supposed to write it down and describe it. But
right.
Report writing in New York City, believe it or not, it was really you won from the state attorney. They did it all for you. It was really quick and easy. In Palm Beach Gardens, where I came from, it developed a little more in technology. We started going a little bit more on computers. As I went into Indian River Shore, technology involved, and you had to adapt as that technology evolved. But as an old timer, you were stubborn at times trying to get into that.
Yeah, I've noticed now, looking back on it, I think it's not that firefighters don't like to collect data. I think we don't like to do useless stuff. So when you can see the value of collecting the data, even a truck check.
Yeah.
when you see the value of something like that and you understand it, we're all in on those things. You know, we just don't enjoy wasting time in busy work. So
No.
I think that's, you know, where I think the technology is going to help us a lot. I know that certainly what we do at First Do is trying to use AI and technology in a way that captures that data in a way that's not a pain in the neck, you know, that's, and it's useful.
Yeah.
And that it means something.
Yeah. Well, no fireman really came in a job to do paperwork.
Right.
They came in to fight fires, right? That's
Yeah.
really what that's what their focus when they came in. Whoever thought, hey, I'm going to go to academy because I'm data driven.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Not so much back in more so now. We're starting to see some really sharp kids show up at the academy,
Yep.
you know, but and they're used to technology. I think it's mostly maybe my generation that might struggle with it some,
Yeah.
but that's okay. That's
Yeah.
okay. We'll
Yeah.
evolve.
I'll tell you, I do a lot of classes across the country, and what I've seen is we're starting to see a lot of new faces attending the ISO presentations. And in the presentations, we go through the schedule. We teach them the schedule, so they're adopting. They're ready to produce what we need to produce. They're working towards those best classifications. But we're seeing a lot of younger generation now coming through and attending these classes. Where in the past, you used to see the same chief over and over and over again. Maybe he'd bring in a sister and a deputy, but it's really that chief controlled it and he wasn't going to let it out of his possession. But now it's different. It's a different world out there. We're seeing a lot more people being involved from a department getting involved in the evaluation process.
Yeah. It's definitely a new era.
Yeah, it is.
And it's been cool to see ISO keep pace, right? I've seen ISO evolve right there with us, you know, the whole time along, and look forward to seeing what comes next.
Yeah, and our goal is really keeping that partnerships going, keeping those
Yeah.
partnerships with the fire department. Let them know that we want to work together. You know, we're one big family. Let's get it done. Let's work as a team to ensure what your department's able to do is what's shown in a classification at the end of the day.
Yeah. Well, Michael, I appreciate you taking the time to pull up a seat at the table, man. And I've learned a lot. I got pages of notes over here of things that I've picked up in this conversation. So I really do appreciate you coming by.
Chief, I appreciate the opportunity to allow me to come in and thank First Do and love to come back and have more conversations on the topics.
Absolutely. And if you need more information on ISO, they can certainly reach out through the website. What's your website?
ISOmitigation.com.
ISOmitigation.com. So there you go. There you got more information on that. That's today's conversation on the First Do Table Talk podcast. I appreciate you taking the time to pull up a chair with us today. If you found this conversation useful, be sure to like and subscribe and hit the bell for the notifications so you find out more when we have new episodes. And if you need more information on leadership technology, working smarter, better, faster in the fire service, be sure to visit us at firstdo.com for more information. We'll see you next time.